Welcome back to the Apex Files podcast presented by Racecomp Engineering. As you can see, it's just me today, but I got a really great show for you guys. Today's guest is a good friend of mine who's pursued his dreams of becoming a professional race car driver. From delivering pizzas to racing Europe, his hard work and dedication has finally paid off. This episode, we're going to talk about what it takes to make it to the big leagues mentally and physically. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the driver of the number 44 Allied Racing Porsche GT4 RS Club Sport, Jordan Wallace. And if you like BGC, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks, guys. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Apex Files podcast presented by Racecomp Engineering. Today, I have a very special guest and good friend, Jordan Wallace.
Okay.
Driver of a Porsche GT4 RS Club Sport, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Number
you got it.
44 Allied Racing in the European series
Yeah.
GT4 class, which is a big deal I want to talk about. We'll get into later. But Jordan, how you been, man?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's been a very long time.
I've known this guy for like over 10 years now, so it's been a wild ride since we met. We met at a kart track where I was pushing karts, and you were a league member, right? Like it was like.
I mean, even before that, I wanted to talk about how close knit like the car enthusiasts, especially people who want to drive, that community is like. So at that time, I think it was like 2007, 2008. My parents just opened up the restaurant. Mm-hmm. And I remember my brother and I going in like, oh, there's a guy who's driving a black Audi next door. Like, oh, TT. Like, It's cool. Because at the time, we also were in the VW.
Yeah, I remember the VW showing up and the first WRX, I think. And I was like, who cars are those? Like, because they were parking out front. Yeah. And I was like, right.
Fast forward a little bit. I come back. College, and then I found out there's an indoor go-karting track that opened up in our area. And at that time, that's brand new. We had nothing.
There was nothing like it in like a 3-hour radius.
Right.
Like, you couldn't do it.
And then I remember my brother and I going in, and we pull in the parking lot. Wait, that Audi looks familiar. We walk in, whatever, and I see this guy, Jordan, and I'm like, yeah. Did you used to work at a pizza place? I mean, like legit, delivering pizzas.
Yeah, that was my first professional driving.
Yeah, right.
Like that's how I tell everybody how it worked. I was like, I made a decision. I was going to get paid to drive, and then I started delivering pizzas. Yeah,
absolutely. Like pizza driver turned into race car driver.
I like to think that not just 10-year-old me, but probably 18-year-old me would be pretty fucking stoked. About where I've ended up.
Absolutely.
But
I want to talk about that whole, it's such a small world. Yeah. And then the first league. I mean, that league was intense. The people that we met was amazing.
I will never forget that league. It was 48 guys for 8 straight Tuesday nights. Yep. And what do we like the last week? We went into the last race of the season with 5 guys that could still win the championship.
Yeah, within like
on points, within like 6 or 7 points of each other. And they all made the final. So it was just like, it was a crazy season. And like, I met so many good people through that. And I ended up doing so many other different forms of racing things and stuff like that because
of the connections. And like, to backtrack a little bit. Yeah. Just the fact that was available to us, like that was offered for kids as a way to start actually getting involved in go-karting. Yeah. Like, I know you were in California back in the day.
So before we opened Autobahn, I had been doing indoor karting mostly like a state or two over. I had been traveling to go do it. And then when I got too good for that and not too good, but like I was winning a lot, I discovered a national arrival drive kart race called the Sport Kart Grand Nationals. That took me to California, to LA. Where I discovered that I was not as quick as I thought I was. And, it kind of opened a whole Pandora's box of like where this is going to go from there, not to mention, racing's one of those things that I always thought would be something that could potentially help me go travel and stuff like that. I kind of set my mind to that and ended up in California for a little bit. Not necessarily working, but just racing and learning and everything. And then I came back, and that's when I ended up at Autobahn. And I was basically the first or second person hired, helped build the first track, karts, everything like that, and designed that first league. And man, did it go
I mean,
it was crazy. Like I can't.
It took off. I mean, just the amount of competition.
Oh, it was so good.
Like
it was
you talking about the points, 5 people.
Yeah.
Still wouldn't be win the championship. I mean, it was cool because I think it was me, my brother, and I.
Yeah.
Logan and Ben, and then Tommy and Chris, and then I think there was another set of brothers too.
There was there wasn't a set of brothers, but it was Tyler and Weedy.
Oh, okay.
Tyler and Weedy, so, and then you had Dustin Bally.
Yep.
And Carol,
yeah. We had
and obviously who won it? Philippe.
Yeah. He was like a sleeper.
Yeah. He just quietly went about like his top 3 and 4s like every freaking weekend.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really cool series to be a part of. Also, like for me, I was like organizer, director, head marshal, and I was doing like color commentary during the whole time.
You're the whole shebang.
Yeah, and the amount of times I had to go like into pit lane and get in between 2 guys who were going to fight each other or something like that.
Yeah,
that's how competitive it was for an electric indoor kart league, which was that was cool.
There was definitely really people getting other people's faces and didn't like some moves.
Yeah,
people were pulling,
and I like to think that we kind of created that vibe that not only was it possible within that sphere because a lot of people doubted that, but I think it also kind of created an energy behind it that I think has grown into what you now see as Autobahn's $10,000 like shootout thing, right? Like where you win $10,000 for driving a go-kart. That's amazing. Right. So like I think you could have won a free season when you did with our first deal.
Which
so
was great.
That was huge. I mean, that was like $500. I mean, woo.
Yeah.
Like, so
but
I think it was a really special way to kind of like introduce motorsports in a real way to an area that just we hadn't had any of it.
Exactly. And the importance of karting, of learning those basic fundamentals.
Yeah.
As as a child.
Yeah.
You can't beat that. Like we don't know, like who the people you're racing with now.
Right. Well,
they,
I mean,
Europeans, we talk about how racing isn't accessible to the people in the US majority compared to Europe. But you're finding that out firsthand now. With that competition.
For sure. I would say like in Europe, it is, let's say, financially more accessible, but from a competition and culture standpoint, it's sometimes less accessible because it is extremely competitive because so many people are doing it. And the culture of things over there is if you aren't showing talent and ability very early on, you should probably hang it up. And that's why there's not as big of a culture of, let's say, gentleman drivers over in Europe. Because like the moment they're getting beat by 17, 18, 19-year-olds, they're like, all right,
they're out the door.
Yeah, I'm done spending my money on this. Or if anything, I'll go sponsor a team or a driver or something like that. So I would say that, for Americans, it's been a slow build to the grassroots of motorsports, right? Like it's been the last 20 years probably.
Yeah, that's really
blown up. And now we see motorsports is becoming one of the top sports spectator wise, especially in the world. So
thank you, Netflix. Right?
Yeah, right. Appreciate you, Netflix. Not gonna lie, definitely contributed heavily to me and my opportunities. So
that's awesome. So,
I
want to get to that.
So
backtrack here. After Autobahn, like I want to go through your steps and process of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, you're down at Rally Ready at Texas.
Okay.
And you're like, you need to come down here and come work with Texas Dave and
So there was an evolution there. So I left Autobahn. I moved it back to California, but Northern California this time. Worked out at Sonoma Raceway for about 3 years actually, as an instructor. I started as a mechanic, became an instructor there in their Formula 3. It was the Audi Performance Driving School for a little bit, and then McLaren and KTM.
Awesome.
So I got to play with a lot of different cars and on one of the best tracks in the country. I think Sonoma is incredible. If it wasn't so expensive to live there, I probably would have never left. And then from there, moved down to Texas, basically just in search of a little more stability as a racing instructor. I wasn't racing at all at the time. Basically, from the time you met me at Autobahn until 2021, which was about 7-8 years, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't race really competitively at all. Like I did one season of arena racing, I think, like when we first met, like right around that time. But then after that, I was just coaching, instructing, working as a mechanic, like anything I could do.
You're still getting seat time.
Yeah, I was. I would actually argue that looking back on it, like I got exponentially more seat time as an instructor than I do now. Way more. I mean, like as an instructor, a lot of times I was in the car 4, 5, 6 days a week. And even if you're in the right seat, the activity of it, I mean, I think you gain and learn so much from it, which I think helped contribute to, I think, my readiness for when I did get my opportunity. Right. But I found my way down to Texas, basically in search of a little more stability and honestly too, like on the instructor front, on the racing school front, all that stuff. It was getting a very consolidated environment and industry in terms of like little schools were being bought up by bigger schools. Yep. Bigger schools were, being purchased by new ownership. Like all that. There was a lot of movement. Yeah. Same with where I was working at Sonoma, all that. So I was looking for a little more stability and honestly a little more freedom. And so I decided to go to Texas, where there wasn't a full-time job for me, but there was like 3 or 4 part-time different gigs. Yeah, like rally school. COTA had a couple different experience deals. I worked for another exotic car experience at a little private track called Harris Hill Raceway. Nice. And that kind of allowed me to put something together until COVID hit. And then COVID hit, and luckily I was in Texas, and Texas shut down for about 2 weeks. That was it, right? That was it. And I got a call like, "Hey, you ready to come back to work?" And I was like, and the rally school ended up being the first. I think we were probably the first racing school in the country to reopen after post-COVID. And I mean, we were open from like late April on, and and it was going like gangbusters. It was really crazy, like that whole summer, which it was 100 degrees every single day at least. In
Texas heat.
Oh yeah, in Texas, dusty. It's about 15, 20 miles outside of Austin, on a 150-acre ranch. And I mean, I was the only let's say instructor that was willing to work. So I was working 5, 6 days a week because people were booking like crazy because they wanted to get out of the house. They wanted to go do something, and we were one of the only places you could click and be like, "Yeah, you can come on down."
I remember even then, like a lot of like journalists and stuff were going down there.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of different publications. We had several different TV shows, things like that come through because they you need content, you need these things. Where are you going to go? And we had this kind of like all-inclusive,
I was like ranch.
It's 150 acres over 8 miles of like rally circuit, jump, bank turns, like freaking giant hangar that I helped build that we work on all the cars in. I mean, it was a pretty incredible place, especially in the sphere of motorsports schools, right? Because so many motorsports schools are kind of the opposite in the sense of like they're very, let's say, like strict? No, not necessarily strict, but I just want to say it's a little more. It's not even more refined. It's just more corporate. It's more like collared shirts tucked in, school platform, and very much a place where things are kind of spoon fed to you, and very much like you're handheld through it so that you don't have a bad time. Right.
I mean, you're paying that much money.
Yeah, you're paying a lot of time and money to do this. You don't want to have your first experience with it be bad, for one. And then also, they're trying to regenerate customers and things like that. What I found at the rally school that we were able to do, especially because I was the only person running it, was I was able to just kind of push the envelope there a little bit. And, the amount of progress we could see from a person in a day, even though it would get to a point where it would get pretty risky. From an equipment standpoint.
You guys just had basically stock cars with
so
suspension and tires.
Exactly. So like mostly GC Subarus and Honda Civics at the time, EP Civics.
Yeah, the EP3.
The little micro van, as I call it.
But none of them were caged.
No, not caged or anything. Just basic setups. Pulled ABS fuse. Manual brakes. Things like that. That's it. Like they were, and it was a that was a great environment, not only to work and learn in, because I hadn't done any real rally stuff prior to that.
Right, yeah, because you mainly track.
Yeah, exactly. But amazing place to learn that skill set and develop it in, but also just an incredible environment in terms of, I used to describe it to people as, if you look at all the racing schools and like entities throughout the motorsport sphere as like restaurants, like on the Michelin star, like Skip Barber's a 2 or 3 star Michelin, like same with like a Lucas Oil or something like that. Dirtfish is another one, right? Like Rally Ready wasn't on the list, but it was where all of those chefs go after their shift to eat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's like it was where like guys from other racing schools would come and be like, "Yo, this is rad! Yeah. Like, we can actually do fun stuff. Right. We can jump cars. We can send it. It was wide open there. Granted, I think it's toned down a little bit, rightfully so. They've had a lot of success, and I miss them, and I'm proud of them every single day. It's still an incredible place, and when I am back down there, I do like to try and make my way over there because it's so fun. Absolutely.
And plus, dogs, right?
Right. The pup. Yeah. Don't even get me started on that.
Be ready.
Yeah.
Have yourself a dog.
Yeah, exactly. They always have dogs for adoption. I personally, in my time working there, probably found at least 4 or 5 dogs while working, like during my shifts. Not to mention the other dogs that have wandered on. And Dave's pack of dogs, like all of it. It's an incredible place. My dog used to come down every day with me to work. It was great, So I can't ever thank that place enough, because it's also where I met my primary sponsor,
which is what I'm gonna go to next. Because right after Rally Ready, I see news that, oh shit, he's getting the Porsche Sprint Cup Challenge in the GT4 time. Yeah, so basically the deal is, and I've it's become like a script now. I've told this story so many times, but the reality is like I said, I was the only one willing to work. So on the day where I met my sponsors, I was teaching a class of about 6. Okay. Is that relatively small or big for that's about average size. I would say like biggest classes are like 10, especially with one instructor. Like you'd like to have more one-on-one time. But I had 6. I think maybe I had a helper. But water truck, mechanic, and lead instructor were all being done by myself. And not to mention like lunch and things like that. Right. And I think in that 2-day class, my sponsors saw something in me. That passion. They saw that, and then coupled that with I stayed in touch with them. And they ended up coming out to a race I managed to do. I don't know how. Like I'll tell you straight up, bro. Like I took out I took out some like payday type loan, things like that, to literally pull a Acura Integra GSR out of a field. It was an old stage rally car. This was this car you were
It was in the field. It was in the field at Rally Ready, and it was already fully caged. It had a GSR motor in it, everything like that. But it had like shit growing up through it, all types of stuff. So it needed to be cleaned up, and it was like this awful green, which I thought was rad, but it was, so pulled it out with the help of Rally Ready, Dave, Roy, Derek, Dusty, all those guys, was able to get the car ready in less than a month.
And that was for COTA, right?
For COTA Grid Life Touring Cup. Yep. And literally pushed it onto a trailer by myself at midnight on Friday. It did not run at the time. I drove it to COTA, not running. Like got it in on Saturday morning, got it running, managed to do 2 races before we threw a rod, and it leaked a little bit of oil and stuff, and that was it. But my current sponsors, their son's a photographer, and he was there shooting the whole thing, and he was like, dude, what are you going to do next? And I was like, I know, save up money and buy another engine, or probably, sell this thing and try to buy something that's more competitive, because I was definitely dead last. like this is not the move. I even remember the Grid Life Touring Cup guys being like, man, Jordan's having a great time at the back there. And like Dave bless you, Dave. But Dave warned them. He was like, "That's only because of the car. If he had a car that was competitive, you guys would be in a different world of like Jordan."
Yeah.
So you know, basically what happened from there was you know, my sponsor's photographer son, he was like, you know, I think you should talk to my dad. You know, I would love to be able to help you.
Right.
You know, and I'm thinking, great, like this is gonna be awesome. First time in a long time, like I've ever, even just someone offered to give me a little something to help get me to the next step. Because I was just gonna do the whole Grid Life Touring Cup season. That was my goal. Went to lunch with them. And
you did one race, right?
Did one race, guys. That had been 7 years. One race. And actually 1.5. The second race puked the motor, you know, but like one race and DFL, dead last, right? Like one race. And they take me to lunch. We start discussing what my thoughts are, and I'm talking about engines or potentially buying an S2000 or like even maybe a cheap Cayman or something like that to compete in Grid Life Touring Cup. And my sponsors are like, that sounds all good and well. Like, we're definitely interested, but that all sounds like old used car stuff that you're gonna have to be working on all the time. And they're like, are you much of a mechanic? I was like, I hate being a mechanic. And they were like, well, I don't really like old car stuff. He's like, I don't like dealing with it. What's a new race car cost?
That's amazing.
And my first reaction was like, you don't want to have that conversation, bro. We don't need to. We don't need to go there. That's a big jump.
This is gonna turn into a 3-hour lunch.
That's a big jump. That's a big jump. So, like, that being said, like, he's like, no, seriously, I want to know, you know. And next thing you know, we're talking about everything from MX-5s to, you know, Porsche Cup cars and everything in between. And he goes, you got 3 days. Work with Matt, my son, you know, like he was like, but you guys got 3 days. Shoot me a presentation on what it would look like for us to go racing for a season, win a new car.
That's pretty solid.
And I was like, whoa. So like sat down, we kind of put together some different packages, and the best path, obviously, if you have the money, I think.
You say packages, you mean like going to spec me out or
I'd say the best path, like if you're looking for a ladder to even like a semi-professional GT car situation, is through a manufacturer, right? And obviously the big ones are, you know, Mazda, Honda, you know, on the Japanese side, and then you've got obviously Porsche, BMW,
real big,
you know, those sort of brands. So, you know, that's where we aimed, because it was a clear path for my sponsors too, because they aren't from motorsports. They don't know anything about.
Right. So when you said the dad asked how much does it cost for a new race car, that's my first thought. He doesn't know anything.
He doesn't know anything about nothing about racing. Nothing about racing. Like, they've never done anything like this before.
But his son's obviously into cars.
Super into cars. He's a professional photographer by trade. So cars is a big part of what he likes to shoot. But he also does a lot of amazing landscape things like that. So but yeah, they've never done anything motorsports, nothing like that. And yeah, so we came together on that and came up with a plan, and I presented it, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. Called the dealership up, said we want to buy one. They said, great. There's only 8 left in the world. Because basically at the time they were discontinuing the normal club sport for the RS.
Okay, right. There was that position.
Yeah, so we bought one of the last original club sports. And then it wasn't going to arrive in time for my second race. The first race, we knew we were going to have to rent a car.
Right.
Because of the lead time just on the purchase and all that stuff. Right?
You already committed to the Porsche Sprint.
Already committed to Porsche Sprint Challenge. So, and we had already partnered with a team. I found a team that I actually grew up down the TPC racing.
Of course.
Yeah. So I going into their showroom and begging them to let me drive cars, and they would be like, get out of here. And finally was able to connect with them and make something happen. And so they decided they ran the car. So we had the car shipped directly to them, but before that, we ended up having to rent a car for the first race, which was actually in Austin at COTA.
Oh, nice.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, it was nice.
So I had some experience. It was some kind of a home race. And then from there, we got a call literally right after COTA saying, "Oh yeah, your car will be there in 9 weeks." And we were like, "That's the next race is at VIR in 3 weeks."
Yeah, bro, that's not gonna happen.
This isn't gonna work. And they're like, "Oh, well, your only other option is to fly the car in, and then it takes 3 days." But that's $35,000.
Yeah,
$35,000. And my sponsor said, "Car's got to be here."
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. And and we just pushed forward with it. And it took like the first half of the season to get acclimated, not only to team car. I mean, I hadn't raced anything competitive in like 6-7 years.
And you're just jumping into
and I just jumped straight into like, not the most competitive series, but a fairly competitive series.
For sure. Brand new team, brand new car.
Brand new everything. Nothing. Like, man, like put it this way too. Pretty much even in my instructor life, driving in anger, especially racing wise, I had never raced anything that was more than probably 1/10 of the value of what I was getting into as well. So that too was like, a lot of weight, lot of pressure and early on. So, but we acclimated fairly well, but we weren't finding the pace. So then, the evolution of my racing career really kicked off. And that comes from mid-season deciding I'm the problem. And
what do you mean by you're the problem?
Mentally, like from a let's say skill perspective and from what I could see on track, everything like that, I very much obviously from my perspective had the talent and ability, but I wasn't finishing any higher than like say 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like and it felt like I was driving my ass off. Right. But like at the same time, I also knew I wasn't there, and so I started really digging into myself because I realized, like, I don't know enough about the setup or anything like that to be a demanding racing driver yet. So I took it upon myself to seek out training and like real, like high level training. And that's how I found iZone Performance in the UK and spoke with them, spoke with my sponsors. And next thing I know, a week later, I was on a plane to England and this is like 2 weeks before my next race. Go to England for a week, train with iZone, which was an incredible experience. And now I swear by it. And I'm
going to say, obviously it helps. Because,
So because I spent a week there, came back, went straight to Indianapolis, swept the weekend. And then every race after that, except for one, finished on the podium. And the one that I didn't finish on the podium was because my teammate ran into me and then they gave me a penalty for it.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah. Well, it's rougher for him. He ended up rolling his car 3 times, and that was
your car was still
my car was. I checked my steering first. I was like, let's go, and then they come over the radio like a lap later, like, oh, you got a drive through for that, and I was like, what?
Oh,
he hit me.
Yeah, right.
What were we talking about? I'm like, check the tape. I gave my memory card to the officials, and an hour later they brought me in the office and apologized to me. But like, but that was the big evolution in the first place, was just, I went from hoping that I could be the guy to knowing that I could be the guy mid-season with that. The other thing it did is it opened up my world of racing from an international perspective and from a skill perspective. I always talk about being at iZone, like being like a college football player and going to like Alabama. The program, the training, the facilities they have, all of that creates you into this beast. Not to mention being around 80 other guys who will whoop your butt all day long. Like that. It's the environment that I needed and built me up. And it also caused me to have a bunch of connections on the Europe side that ended up taking me over there for season number 2. It happened so fast. I mean,
for a driver to take a step back and like, what's going on? Is it me? Is it the car? That's a big step to go realization. You know?
Especially someone like myself. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I and Lawrence can tell you. When he met me 10 years ago, I was a pretty confident fellow.
You're pretty cocky guy. He could drive.
Yeah, I was sick. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely knew it about myself. And so for someone like me to come to the realization that guys I actually was coaching and teaching were quicker than me and owning it, that was a little tough at first for sure. Especially even owning the fact that I was about to at first I was going to come out of pocket to train with iZone, and I don't have that much money, you know, so I was going to be like piecemealing it, but I was going to do what I could to try and build myself up so that I could earn that money. The moment my sponsors saw that, they took over and gave me the luxury package, you know, and I've been on that ever since. And that's kind of the thing that I've had the luxury of with my sponsors is they've come in and instead of asking for advertising, marketing, all of these things, they've provided me almost like with an angel investor setup where they've supported me and my growth and my ability to take this to whatever level I can, you know, because a lot of what motorsports is, and I'm sure you guys talk about it, is the fact that there's a stage in it probably just after karting where it's like a no man's land because like, unless you have 7 to 8 figures, there's a 4 to 7 year period where you have to support yourself going racing at a high level so that people can see you and trust you and know that you have the ability to do it. Like, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people underestimate too, is like, it's not even about how fast you are. A lot of times these guys know that they're all racing with multi-$100,000, $1 million racing machines. They want to know you're not going to go out and tear their stuff up. You know, like, and so, responsible. Yeah, you're going to be responsible and fair in that thought process and in that sphere. And how do you get that opportunity? Where does that come from? And so for me, I know, like, there've been a lot of times where I've given up on it altogether. Because what I have now with my sponsors and with even like future sponsors now is people who really believe in me. No matter, let's say, the results a lot of the time, which I think that's a huge, but that's why you see most of the kids that make it, it's because dad was funding, because dad doesn't care about the results to an extent because he believes in the process. And you used to see that a lot, I think, in the 50s, 60s, 70s from team owners, sponsors, things like that. They'd see a guy, but that was also because the danger was if you got in, you might not make it back. We'll let that guy show us, but like, I think that's what I'm seeing, Netflix and the stuff like that's changing the landscape of motorsports. I think that's changing how sponsorship is starting to look for people like myself and beyond. Netflix thing has worked so well that other sports are trying to replicate it. Tennis, golf, they're all trying to replicate what F1 did.
And I've heard the tennis and golf things are amazing.
They're great. They're amazing. I don't know anything about those sports, and I've learned so much. So it's one of those things where. And I can tell you with my sponsors, like I said, they don't know anything about racing, don't come from it. They like cars, stuff like that. But I was always concerned because it's a family business. Like they're extremely tight knit. I was always worried, because like my sponsors, he has a wife, and he has a daughter who actually she runs the finances of the company for the most part and everything, right? And I'm like, oh man, like they're gonna say yes to like my sponsor's gonna say yes, but. And the ladies are going to come back in and be like, hold on. This is extra. How much? Like for
this shouldn't be expensive for that
per weekend. But the reality was when I first met them, they were almost more excited than Frank and Matt were because they were like, we were watching Netflix. So that one thing on Netflix. We can't wait. We're going to be in the pits. We'll be able to see it. We didn't know how intense and involved it was. It's opened the world up, like for guys like us, to like literally recreate what was possible in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, like being Carroll Shelby or Roger Penske or something like that, where if you're determined enough, if you're hardworking enough, and if you have some semblance of talent and skill, like
someone's going to find you.
Yeah, you can do something with that. Like, and it can be very, very real, very big,
you are the living example of that. Your dedication from, you know, even when we first met, even before, to now. Like,
I remember sitting down with like you and like Andy Spicer, people like that, and being like, just trying to get like $5,000. You know, like just trying to figure out like where can I get like, you know, like, and you know, now the budgets we're talking about, that's tires,
right?
You know, for 1 set, that's like 1 set. You know, like so, it's incredible, the evolution of our sport. Not to mention, I mean, Lawrence, you're my age, I think, or like right around my age.
Yeah.
We grew up in an era where we would get chased out of parking lots for sitting around and talking.
Yeah, no, not doing anything.
Yeah, like forget a takeover or anything like that. A burnout or a rev.
Cars were parts.
Yeah. Man, the cops rolling. I mean, if you've seen the first Fast and Furious, you know, they would come in like SWAT teams and like just have us up, like smashing cars, like impounding stuff. Like, oh man, like so our era of like what it was to even pursue this. I mean, like
it was a dream.
Not just a dream. I mean, most people, even if they were in the cars, looked at you like, okay, like, you know, and to know that where we're at now and how much motorsports has become a mainstay in the mainstream of society.
I love it.
Like,
I love it.
It's so cool. Yeah. Like, you know, and to be someone who is like at the forefront of certain parts of it, to be out in Europe racing and things like that, and to, you know, be the only African American to be doing so, like that part, I don't know and really register until we're talking. Until we
sit down.
You know, but like, it's crazy, man. Like, I to see where we come from, like,
it's amazing. But I mean, like, so after you do the Porsche Sprint in the US, and then you say you go to that the training camp in England, meet some more, obviously,
connections a ton of drivers, like
connections everywhere. And then next thing I know, you're off to Europe.
Yeah.
DTM at the time, DTM Trophy, right?
Yes,
and in GT4 still, but
GT4,
something new, BMW.
Yeah. So the jump to BMW was kind of a mix of things. The new Porsche was coming out, and we didn't have a lot of connections on the Europe side to drive the new Porsche. And we weren't sure what the BOP, things like that were going to be. It's the first year of a new chassis for Porsche. And not to mention, couple that with the fact that the opportunity that I got in DTM Trophy was to literally drive the car that won the championship the year prior.
Oh, shit.
You know, and be coached by the kid who won the championship the year prior. So it was like a deal we couldn't pass up. Right. Not to mention the budgets over there are considerably more friendly going racing. So
which is wild.
I'm not all the way sure as to why, but like it is.
But no, racing over there in Europe is just generally more accessible.
Yeah. So that was the reason we made the jump to BMW. Looking back at it was definitely something I needed to do. Like from a development standpoint, I needed to see what it was like to move from manufacturer to manufacturer, how different, like all that kind of stuff. But I didn't necessarily meld with the car the way I wanted to, even though the work and things like that we were putting in was immense.
You had done a lot of testings in California.
We did a lot of testing. We did a ton of training and things like that, and a ton of coaching. And it didn't quite pan out. Like it was also DTM Trophy by far, I think it's gone now.
Yeah, right.
At the time, it was the most competitive GT4 sprint series on the planet.
I almost like Mazda Spec Miata or Mazda Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, the racing
was so tight, intense.
So
like, intense, I would qualify 15th and be 7/10 off. It was so frustrating. Like, but like at the same time, like I think it helped really build me up for where I'm as a driver and for where I'm going within the sport and within Europe even. Yeah. Like I literally threw myself straight into like the hardest series in Europe. Like I had my mechanic looked at me before the second race on the grid and he goes, "You're a crazy guy." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He was like, he goes, "You race 1 year in America and then you come over and join the most competitive GT4 series on the planet." Like, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." Like, but for me, it's always, I'm older. I'm not going to get a ton of opportunities. I know. And I don't come from a ton of money. So I wanted to maximize it from a skill perspective. Right. And iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah,
like, and so like, throw yourself to the wolves. You either sink or swim.
Yeah.
Like, like,
soon enough.
And that was the thing is like over the season, man, did I get quicker and quicker and quicker to the point where, like by midseason, I was scoring points regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the season, I never figured out qualifying on the Hancooks. That was a tough one.
That was a tough
tricky
one. Tire.
Yeah, it's a tricky tire. So like I would normally qualify like anywhere from 17th to 25th. And then I would run it up to like 7th or 8th. So that was great experience.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely eye-opening to what it was going to be a professional driver.
Yeah. That was your first real insight, right?
Yeah. Because I think everything up before IMSA over here, I think has a tinge of hobby in it. So you don't always have that feeling of like, let's say the level of pressure or the level of
the pressure, no, it's professional. It's still professional.
The professionalism was a little bit, but just the pressure of all the people, the expectations, and even like the level of driver. Like everybody's on it all the time from the moment they say go. Practice, quality, rate, like it's on. So
you got to be at top of your game.
Yeah, so it definitely turned me into a driver that feels like now I'm used to that. I'm very comfortable in that space. And I feel like I could go anywhere with that, So
then, all right, you do TDM trophy.
Yep.
Next year, I see you back in a Porsche.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit.
So that was the revelation. The revelation over the off season was that like after DTM trophy was the biggest revelation I think was because we did some off season testing in the new BMW chassis, the Mercedes GT4 chassis, and in the Porsche.
Oh, so you dabbled in it.
I tried. We basically I had to figure out if it was me or the car, and it was a bit of both. Obviously, that was an older chassis from BMW, but like also my melding with the car, I think, was a big part of it. So, we did some testing, and the Porsche just fit like a glove. I was so used to it, like in a lot of in the way you drive it and everything like that. And the team once again was a team that had almost won the championship. Really, really good team, and they were offering me a seat as a driver, in a really good deal. So that was what kind of forced the hand, especially that, and the fact that DTM Trophy went away. I think if DTM Trophy hadn't gone away, you'd have seen me in it for a second season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that was the best experience I had ever had in my life, especially in racing. So moved over to SRO GT4 European, which is a little less of a sprint series, a little more closer towards endurance. It's an hour-long race. You share the car with another driver.
And you were DTM. It was just your own.
It was just me. Sprint races, single driver. It's on it was just a half-hour fight, Whereas this is more of a kind of pace it out, pit strategy, things like that.
So how was your evolution to that? How did it take long for you to?
No, I mean honestly, it feels fairly similar. The biggest things are driver changes and how you kind of take care of the tire.
Gotta be more mindful.
Because you're not doing a tire change during the race, just a driver change. Okay. So you have, especially if you're a second driver, you're on a half-hour-old tire when you get in. So.
What is the series? Are they running?
We run Pirellis.
Okay.
Yeah, we run Pirelli. So they tend to plateau after lap 4 or 5, and then they stay about 80%. For most of the rest of the run.
But I mean that series, it's still
super competitive. I mean, when DTM Trophy went away, I mean half of the DTM Trophy field is in SRO GT4 European this year. Mm-hmm. So.
You have that.
We all went over to there because that was the second most competitive series last year, and now it's the most competitive series on the planet. We just moved over. So that was the other reason we went there, because I felt like I needed another year as well in GT4.
Yep.
Not only to try and win a championship, but also to try and prepare myself for stepping up to the GT3 category, because that's the
goal, right? We all know that's the goal. And I mean, your progression, it's been year after year. Your mechanic said, you're fucking crazy for coming over because push. But that's what you gotta do for people like us in our position, that come from basic background.
Yeah, it's like I just keep betting it all on black. You know, like I just keep like double down. And there's a lot of times like I can tell you where I've not wanted to double down. I just want to hang it up. I want to have a nice stable place to live. I have an E90 BMW M3, right? Like I haven't driven it in a year and a half.
Right.
Like more than 20 minutes in a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's sitting in California because like I just like like
around.
I'm all over the place and like so
I mean you're living that life now as a racing driver.
Yeah, so exactly. So I've doubled down on that and it's taken 3 years, but I've really started to feel like I've hit a really good sweet spot, and now it's become my career, my life, and that's a really cool thing to feel and see happen. Like you said, like from where we've come from to where I'm at now, and the fact that there's.
I mean, you're on there, rubbing elbows with guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm it's a really cool place to be in one sense, and then at other times I can definitely say it is extremely tumultuous in my mind because it's like how am I making this work? And it feels like I'm like like if you stop and think it's like, are you just walking this tightrope? Like because the reality is like my mom's a youth teacher, like a youth director / teacher. My dad's a police officer. Like we're not coming. I don't have like. When I get into a wreck on track, I don't have it. I don't got the money.
I think my first thought is, fuck, what do I do now?
Yeah. And I mean, and my first race in DTM trophy, not my first race, the second race of the weekend, I had probably my biggest DNF I've ever had. First weekend in Europe, huge DNF. And then the bill comes and it's like almost 30,000 euros. And my sponsors are like, hey, like, we love you, but don't do that again. Don't do that again. Right. Like, and so then I'm like midway through the season, I remember having an argument with my like coaches and engineers because they're like, you need to be pushing like this here. And I'm like, I'm trying to bring the car back home. Right. Because that's what my sponsor told me to do. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, man. Like, they were like, look, this is how much it's costing. Yeah. Try to back that down
just a little bit, but see what you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
but I think as long as the sponsors are understanding of that, that's the most important.
And that's the key. I went on another podcast recently, and I was talking about sponsorship because that's the main question.
Absolutely,
everybody. How do you get the money? Right? Like, it's about relationships and connections. I think anytime you're in like what I would call a NASCAR situation where you're a rolling billboard. And the advertising, marketing, ROI, eyes on, those sort of things are what your sponsor wants. That's a much tougher deal to keep up with than finding those sponsors, those people who really care about you and support you.
You are not looking for ROI.
And I find that's what's interesting about the new way motorsports and sponsorship is looking is there's more and more of those, let's say, smaller individual entities and things like that have the means and want to care about something. Yeah. And so,
which is awesome to see.
Yeah. That's what I've been blessed with is like, these people who, and what's been really cool is it's allowed me to build up what I'm doing to where now more people care.
Right.
And that's the snowball effect of it. Yeah. And that's something I didn't expect, because like for so long, just like Jeremy Clarkson used to say, like, as a car guy, we're the most boring guy at everything, right? Because unless you want to talk about cars,
I got nothing on.
I'm so boring, it hurts. So, like, to finally be in a space where, like, when I bring up race car driver, people are like, oh, like, they perk up. They perk up instead of being like, okay, or like.
I worked the other day. Saw a guy come in, and regular customer, and son had SRO hat on. That's cool because I mean the kid was probably like in his maybe high school.
Dude. Like, it's a different world.
Like, not only does he know about cars, he knows motorsports, right? Like he's actually interested in motorsports. I'm like, oh shit,
which is crazy. Yeah. Like that's the part that like when we first got into this stuff, it was like you had to almost learn Japanese to get a set of coilovers.
Yeah, right. This is
exactly. So it's one of those things where like to be where we're at now, it's just incredible. And yeah, for me, what I would want to see is our world getting even smaller in a broader way.
Yes.
By like more people doing what I'm doing and taking that leap. I think what I've done that's so different is like I didn't go the normal, like let's say club racing and then like only aim at like the American series. Like it's almost like when you get a little more open to what's possible and allow yourself to be creative, then it becomes something that maybe is more possible than you think too. That's where I want people to go with it is like the reason I was able to go from absolutely not a pizza guy.
Yeah, literally delivery pizza driver for a local pizza shop.
Yeah. To professional race car driver in the most competitive series in Europe. Like, I mean, like that's something that I think I've always had to think differently, and I think that's where, guys like us, that's where we come in and why I think the sport has grown too. So, I'm really excited for the younger generation, man. They're so lucky in the sense of like, there's all of this. I mean, drifting's in every car commercial.
Oh yeah.
Like, like all of these things that were so much like, oh, I wish like for us, like we're
especially drifting. I mean, we had Michael Gimo on. So he has a new team now.
Yep.
But we were just talking about drifting in general. And I mean, like Summit here, I think pretty sure Summit has more drifting events than track days.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And I remember one of the first drift events at Summit back in 2004 or 5 I went to.
Yeah.
And we were sharing track time with like Formula Fords and stuff like that. We would get like a 20-minute session. And oh my God, did they hate us? They would the people in the paddock were like, God damn kid. It was like being a skateboarder in the 80s or 90s, right? Like, you're just a criminal. Like you're just a delinquent. Like, like and we were seen as ruining the track, like and now to see where that's gone.
You see grid light with time and track. And drifting all
just the fact that like anybody who goes out and buys like a slightly like special edition or modified car now is like, I wonder how I can get into a track day.
Easy.
What? That's incredible. Yeah. Like, so like, I find that, like we, as those little kids who love race cars have kind of made an adult world that it's a cool environment to be in. And I am definitely blessed and lucky to say that I stuck with it.
Yeah.
And I always aimed at things that were bigger than me. And I think
you weren't afraid to take chances, which I think that's like, you guys step out of your comfort zone to grow, right?
For sure.
You've done that and it's paid off well.
It's paid off well, even when it doesn't look like that from, let's say, a results standpoint. Right. Like, I mean, I've gotten my butt whooped a lot, especially since I got to Europe. Those cars are so good. They're so fast. But in the same breath, like I've managed to over time earn a lot of respect and skills in that environment. And
stuff you want to be able to develop if you stayed in the US.
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention, like, I feel like if I was to come back to the US, not to call any of my sports car driver buddies out, but it's on like Donkey Kong because the level that I'm used to operating at just on a race weekend or something like that. I mean, I've been to a lot of race weekends in America. I mean, it's like times 10 in Europe on every race weekend. Like I said, it's from the word go. From in every practice, you're trying to be the fastest. And every time out, but you're like. I
think that like even for the series, like so when Miles was with K-Pax and they were still in the US SRO. It sucks because that never got like a good fan base. You never took off like IMSA.
Yeah, they've struggled. They've struggled with the media side, the let's say the marketing side of things. Even though the racing is incredible.
The racing's still incredible, which is why I don't get it. But then like this is the level of US racing to Europe, and then so when K-Pax switched to Europe, full season Europe, they should like, holy shit, this is gonna be great.
It's big. The best way I can get and tell people is the only way you can compare it or understand what it means to be an American race car driver or a race team and trying to go race in Europe is literally the only equivalent is you're a great American soccer player and you try to go play in the Premier League. You know what I mean? Like, it's a wake-up call. Like, it's a whole man. Like, you thought that you could be the best U.S. player out, and you are going to be maybe a starter, maybe over there, right? Like, and I'm not the best American sports car driver. By far, I know a lot of really talented guys, and a lot of them are younger than me with a lot more money. Yeah. so like throwing yourself into that, I think is like people, they're like, why would you do that? Like I said, first things first, iron sharpens iron. Second thing is, I love racing in front of people. I love competing in front of a lot of people. You know, like I'm an American, dude. It's a different vibe. Like I grew up playing high school football on Friday nights, and like 5,000 people in the stand, 10,000 people in the stand. The more, the better. You know, like, and in America, sometimes, I mean, even at an IMSA race, like you look up in the stands and there's just no one. No one. I mean, you talk about being at Indianapolis for an IMSA race or something like that, and there's maybe 7,000 people there. That's crazy, you know, to me. And then you get over to Europe, and like I don't think we've had a race yet this year that's had less than 50,000 people there. And then at DTM, I mean, it was
even crazier.
Oh man, there were weekends where it was a couple 100,000. You know, like so, like it. You know, that's the environment I want to operate in. That's who I want to be. I want to be a professional race car driver. So that's where it is, and I think that's the reason why you make that jump, even if it's different, scary. You know, I think a lot of guys end up staying over here too because it is so expensive to go race. It's like, where do your connections lie? And my connections and my sponsors, luckily enough, have European roots.
That's awesome.
And so they were like, yeah, that sounds great. Especially when they saw the budget, they were like, this, you know, like, get the hell out of here. Like,
it's amazing.
So it's
So I mean, you know, and it's what, halfway through, you got what, another 4 or 5 races left?
4 races.
Four races
left. Yeah. So 2 race weekends, 4 races altogether. Hockenheim in about a week. A little over a week, and then Barcelona to wrap the season up at the end of September.
Which, if anybody from Assetto Corsa Competizione is listening, we need those track updates. I'm trying to race GT4 and Hockenheim because it's not on there yet.
Come on, for real. You guys sponsored the series. Like, let's get it going. Let's get it going.
But you also, so you've been doing a lot of stuff in between too. Talk to us about Curry Motorsports. How did that come about?
Magic. Like that's what I always joke with Julius.
So people who don't know,
Julius Curry is an ex-NFL player. I think he played like 3 or 4 years in the NFL. Mostly Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. And since about 2006, he's been out of the league and pursuing business endeavors, mostly in motorsports. Started in NASCAR. He actually, from what I understand, he was part owner in a truck team for a little while.
Nice.
And then he's dabbled around and found IMSA and has wanted to get into IMSA and GP3 stuff for a while. And he's finally been able to put all of it together in the last couple of years. He's basically just putting together a program that none of us have ever seen before. And me and him have been in talks for a while, and I kind of came to him as the only minority driver that has experience at that level. So we really connected, and so now I've been working with him to try and help develop the program out, and then we'll see. I may end up in one of those seats. We'll see. I don't know what next year looks like exactly yet, but hell of a program. He's a hell of a guy, and like, you know, his goal is for Curry Motorsports to be the humanity team, to be the team that actually looks out for drivers and mechanics, people like that first, and also provides opportunities for people who maybe wouldn't have had them otherwise.
That's awesome.
You know, because in motorsports, obviously it's a very tight-knit, small community, but it also very much exists in a space of like, do you have access? Do you have the privilege to go to this stuff? And so what he's trying to provide is, I mean, he's taking kids who've literally only maybe even raced an arrive and drive kart race once or twice, and he's throwing them in a GT3 Lambo like for like 5-10 laps at a time. Obviously they have a coach with them and stuff, but like
it's getting people.
He's changing the way this could look. Just like I said, I think there's a lot of new creative money coming into motorsports that wants to see actual competition, talent, and and real stories of people who deserve to be there instead of it being an old boys club.
People paying and
it being the old rich guys club. Just like go golf or something like that. So Curry Motorsports is on the come up. Be on the lookout. Definitely Super Trofeo next year, and possibly multiple other series. We'll see.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. He's getting a lot of other really cool entities involved, and I think what you could see is some very, what I would like to see is a change in motorsports to go even more mainstream in the sense, but just more towards who we are as people and getting some of these other big companies. I mean, one of my big targets with Curry Motorsports is Nike. And, like a company like that should obviously, I mean, they dominate every sport they go into. It makes a lot of sense for them to be in motorsports, especially with how popular it is and how fast it's growing. But they normally identify with a more, let's say, youthful, urban, and let's say earned it sort of athlete, because those guys normally win a lot. And so I would really like to see things like Curry Motorsports start bringing more of that kind of stuff, into the sport. Similar like how Bubba did, with his activism and with his standing up for his culture, like within NASCAR. I mean, I think he brought a lot of new faces and blood into the sport that I was actually,
because you were at NASCAR.
I was at NASCAR a couple of weeks ago. I was spotting for an Xfinity team, a buddy of mine, Brad, but his roommate, 2311's social media guy. So I end up in 2311's hauler the next day during the Cup day. And to see and to talk to some of the decision makers at a place like a team like 2311 and have them be extremely interested in European sports car racing.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's like what the hell is
NASCAR, dude? I've existed in that sphere for a long time.
Yeah.
Those guys have never wanted to know what I'm up to with sports cars or anything like that. But it's changed everything, So like, I think that's another big piece of this is I think the landscape, the scope of all of it is changing big time. Yeah. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely a new time for motorsports to thrive, and we can't wait to see how it's gonna
look.
Yeah. I mean, it's just exponentially.
I mean, you look at things like grid life, like you said. I mean, that was a huge springboard for me in multiple senses. Not to mention, like I didn't touch club racing.
Right.
I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I have no desire to ever go over that. Like, I knew I could do that through the 7 years I didn't race. I knew I could have saved up $5-10 grand and tried to do something in that.
Yeah, or something.
But like very rarely, if ever, did I see someone like win something there and then all of a sudden they're doing something else. And instead, I saw a lot of guys who were like, I spent 15-20 grand. Now I don't have it. And now I'm going to do that again next year. So things like grid life kind of open it up because it's like all of a sudden there's a lot of new faces watching. And the, let's say the show of it, the party aspect of it, the enjoyment, entertainment of it is fed. Whereas I think a lot of grassroots racing, that's where it lacks, right? Like it feels almost very sterile and very kind of
because I mean, what we have, you have your local NASA or SCCA groups, but those track days, you said they're track days, right? It's not really, it's more for the older crowd, which is fine. Yeah, but, you get there, you drive,
right,
and you chill with buddies. Whereas grid life is like a whole.
It's a party. There's like a music festival going on. There's a car show, like with cars that have no business even being on the road there. I mean, and then there's race cars, there's drifting. Yeah. I just think that motorsports is a culture and a lifestyle, right? Like, and I think that these things that are coming in are shifting the way. Like, if you look at like F1 or NASCAR, what are they doing? They're shifting to that model, in order to keep people interested or bring new people in.
So, like, I don't know if you follow Larry Chen a lot.
Oh yeah,
I mean, the fact that Haggerty picked him up as the thing, and while he still has his own thing. I mean, and it's great to see Haggerty showing the interest in us, our age group too.
Haggerty is doing an amazing job, not just with the events, but also with the like I said, Larry Chen, and then also like their Haggerty lounges and things like that they've created now. There's a lot of more people who are creating these spaces for us to exist. in the ways that we've always imagined. You know, bring up someone like Larry Chen. I think he's been integral to our youth culture gaining a real footing in high level motorsports and high level car industry stuff, because he is such an artist and such an elite photographer that, I mean, he's like National Geographic stuff. So the people look at it and then they see it, but the content is us. Right, the content is us, like, and so
the shots that he gets.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll be honest. Literally, the day I blew the motor, at Grid Life, took it back to Rally Ready because I thought it was a fuel pump. Tried to replace the fuel pump, but there was a party, Grid Life party at Rally Ready, for that. And guess who's there? Larry Chen. And he takes a picture of me hanging out, sitting on the rally car with the sun setting in the background, and posts it to his story, right? You told me about it. You hit me up. You're like, yo, Larry Chen post the picture. I was like, what? Like, and at this point, like, I'm not a race car driver, nothing, right? Like, and he posts this picture of me. And then, like, you and a couple other people are like, yo, you about to blow up. It's about to blow up. And literally within like 2 weeks, I'm sponsored. I have a full ride and PORSCHE challenge. I've got a race car, and then I'm moving to Europe. It's Larry Chen. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what kind of wizardry you do with your camera work, but like, thank you. And I'll catch you hopefully at like Le Mans or someplace like that soon, man. Like,
now you gotta go to Europe.
For real. But like, but it's crazy how much like the people we're intertwined with, because we never gave up on it, I think, too, are now the decision makers and the people who are at a high level in this sphere.
Absolutely. I mean, like, so for me, like, I've known Racecomp since before I could drive.
Right.
Like, I remember being at their open house with Logan at the time. He had an 06 Debrex.
Yep.
I couldn't drive at the time. I wanted a fucking intake. I didn't have a car.
Exactly. Right.
But then, like, after I graduated, I was like, oh, I want a car job. Racecomp local, cool. Racecomp. Miles doing the whole motorsports thing. That's when I really started to get into like motorsports stuff. And and then you Autobahn.
I was like Autobahn and everything like that. I mean, it just like this area has always had a good car culture. I think the DC area has always had a great car culture.
I mean, Baltimore Grand Prix was awesome.
Yeah, Baltimore. Bring that back. Everybody should that was a great race.
Yeah.
But I mean, between that and then I think this area has always been ripe for it because it's got the affluence, it's got the it's got the money and the amount of people, all that kind of stuff. So we've always had a great car culture, but like motorsports has been a tough ask because on the East Coast it's very packed in land and things like that are at a premium, right? So having a racetrack, especially anywhere where near people live, is near impossible. So
that whole charge an arm and a leg for
for us, like motorsports was something like I knew when I first got into it in early 2000s, it needed to be grown in my area before we were going to get anything done, before anything was going to happen, or sponsors, anything like that. It needed to exist for us. And, to see it where it's at now and see you guys and everybody where it's so cool. Like, man, there's a lot of times where I feel like a little frustrated that I'm this old getting my opportunity, but at the same time, like to know where I've come from and
but the thing is, you're taking advantage of that time.
Oh yeah, and I'll be honest, I feel like I'm 22. So like I'm ready to go.
That's all that matters.
Like I got another 15 years in me. Let's do it. So
most people, I mean, say the late kind of block, he didn't even start driving until what?
34, 35, something like that.
Late. I mean, super crazy fucking talented.
Once again.
Still a late.
He's a worker. He works at it, and that's kind of the thing that I tell people all the time too. Is like finding the money and all that stuff's great, but I never found the money when I set out to find it. When I went looking for it, I never found it. Is when I set my mind to the work, all of a sudden the money showed up. So like
it's the work ethic.
It's the work ethic. It's the existing in the sphere. It's the
people need to see how you
and it needs to be an opportunity that actually supports you. And I don't think you get those when you go begging. I think you get people with expectations and all types of other things.
Right.
Whereas when you allow yourself to exist in a sphere and show who you are, we are the type of people who, in a sense, make dreams into reality. But I think it's more just like aim small, miss small, right? Like when you aim at what you want and then set your mind to it, work at it, like you never know, like, especially if you don't quit.
Right.
Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like we have a ton of buddies throughout this, like that we've known throughout this karting and everything that they're just not doing it anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, whether it's family, mainly family,
job, obviously expenses in general.
Yeah, right. I mean, but it's normal life stuff. But like, you know, like you say, you make those sacrifices.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I can very honestly say I've, in a lot of ways, I could probably describe it as not necessarily selling my soul to the devil, but I sold my soul to motorsports.
Yeah.
And it has run roughshod through the rest of my life. So I don't highly recommend it to anybody unless it is truly what you love.
Right.
If it is what you love and what you're passionate about, you're going to be crazy not doing it. Mm-hmm. So
right, because it's if you don't,
you're always going to wonder, right? And that was my biggest thing too. With like you said, I've taken a lot of risks and and things like that. It's like I just never wanted to wonder, if it was possible, right? You know, if it was like something that
you got to go out there and make it happen.
You know, and now it's this weird kind of settling in of like, and it builds your confidence too. But like this settling in of like, I'm gonna be able to go to my grave knowing that I race with some of the best in the world on that stage. Right. And so, I mean, most legendary tracks on the planet. Like, I mean, like just
Spa,
Monza. Yeah, dude, I podiumed at Monza.
Yeah, which is fucking awesome. Yeah. Well, I remember Miles when you guys were at Spa. Miles, he was like, you need to like he was like, you need anything else for like you know, the content for the podcast. I was like, yeah, you know, get some shots here or there. I was like, you know, we're definitely gonna have my buddy Jordan on there. Like, if you have times, obviously I know it's a busy weekend for everybody. I was like, try to get some shots of his car, number 44 Allied Racing. Yeah. And he's like, cool, all right. Next thing I know, he sends me a picture of you sharing. You guys, out of all the fucking teams that weekend, you guys are sharing
box.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wild.
Yeah.
Small
world. And I remember Miles was really funny. Not at Spa, but at Paul Ricard. He came up to me because we recognized him. We said, "What's up?" Yeah. And he goes, "Hey, man, when you were working at Audubon, I knew you were fast, but I didn't know you were this fast." He's like, "You got all the way over here." Like, I knew you were this fast. And you know, that was a really cool moment because especially over in Europe, no one knows me from Adam. Yeah. So I'm just another random American guy. Like, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" You know, so like. The reality of where we've come from and that it's really crazy.
But guys, you know,
I'm very blessed.
Yeah, don't give up if it's something that truly inspires you and you're passionate about. I mean, this guy's done it. You know,
never give up. Just work at it. The other piece of advice I always like to give people is be direct, always be present, and don't ask for things. Just show what you're worth. And the things will come.
Very fucking.
You know, like, because I think, you know, the way I described it to somebody a few weeks ago was, you know, the two types of people you're probably going to ask for sponsorship are either people who are also looking for sponsorship, like me. You know, like, so you're asking, how do you get money? When I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how to get money.
Anybody else wants to sponsor Jordan?
Yeah. Hey, you know, like, I race also in Europe and I also race in America. The plan is for GT3, and the ultimate goal is to be the first African-American to win Daytona 24 hours, the Le Mans 24 hours, and the Sebring 12 hours to win the Triple Crown.
That'd be badass.
No one in our community's ever done it.
Right, yeah.
So, let alone, I think maybe once or twice we've had someone even in the race.
Yeah.
So, that's my main goal. And if there's anybody out there who has a belief in trying to make that a reality and make history with me, that's something that I would.
You and Rob Holland should be in a GT3 car.
Oh, that would be amazing.
I think
that would be incredible.
Rob Holland.
Yeah.
If you need a driver.
Yeah. Hit me up. Hit me up.
He's already in GT4.
Yeah. We drive the same car already, actually. So if you want to race.
Yeah. Yep.
But don't ever give up and aim small, miss small. Like I said, it's like, I think a lot of guys get into it and they're like, "Oh, Formula One." You know, like
they want to go straight to the top.
You want to go straight to that's aiming high. Yeah. I'm saying aim small, meaning I want to race Porsche GT3Rs in IMSA GT3, and I want to win the Daytona 24 hours and the Le Mans 24 hours and the Sebring 12 hours. That is an extremely detailed and direct goal. And if I miss that goal, chances are I'm still probably driving a Porsche GT3R.
Right.
Like,
it
might not win the race or something like that. So like, these are the ways you need to think about your approach, and also understand that, like, just like you said about Ken Block, he got his opportunity. He started racing at 34. I got my sponsorship at 33. It took 10 plus years of me working in the industry before anyone ever gave me any money.
Yeah.
So be patient with yourself, stay ready. And yeah, like, I think the world's your oyster. You never know what could happen.
Yeah.
And
because people come and go, and you never know who's going to show up.
You never know who's going to show up. And consistency, just like on the racetrack, gets you to the front.
Yeah. Well, I know, real quick.
Yeah. Golden Glory.
Told us about Golden.
So
awesome design.
Yeah. So right now I'm struggling to keep up with it. Not from an order standpoint.
No,
but I'm in the middle of the race season, and my supplier has been a little shaky. But basically, what I decided at the end of DTM Trophy season last year was that I needed to find ways to, let's say, support the fact that I had such a big platform now.
Yeah.
And also, like, utilize it. So the FIA, in their infinite wisdom, basically decreed that drivers will no longer be able to wear personal items or make personal statements on the podium or anything like that when it comes to their political or social views. And I took direct offense to that, being a driver of color in a sport that is, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 95% white. So I believe they were talking to a small percentage of us in terms of minorities and the LGBTQ community, and basically telling us they don't want to see it.
Yeah.
You can be here. We just don't want to. It's the don't ask, don't tell, right?
We
like,
want to
hear about it
on TV
and so first thought for me is like, all right, well, here we go. I'm going to get fined, like, and things like that, right? And then think about guys like Lewis and the statements that he's already made and stuff, and how I could contribute to that. And my thought was, well, shoot, they're not going to let me wear the T-shirt. They're not going to let me make the statement. What if I created a brand that allowed the entire stands to make the statement? That allowed everybody who knew that was wrong, and that knew that motorsports belongs to everyone, to give them something they could identify with. So then I set my mind to creating a brand, and I started with the name Golden Glory because it stems directly from a similar sort of situation in the early 1900s during segregation in the United States. The Indianapolis 500 was founded, and Indianapolis was actually a majority black town. A lot of people don't know that, but it was a warehouse style industry town. They built parts for Detroit, So the majority of the engineers, mechanics, and people like that in Indianapolis were black, and they were not allowed within the facility to even watch the race. Okay, that's how hardcore. And I mean, some of these guys had built the cars, right? And they weren't allowed to. They weren't allowed to mechanic or wrench for the race. None of that, right? And so in 1924, the Colored Drivers Association, which they had just formed, they just decided to make it, created what I would call a sister race to the Indianapolis 500. It was 2 weeks after the Indianapolis 500 on July 4th, or at the time, July 4th, at the Indianapolis Fairgrounds, and they called it the Golden Glory Sweepstakes. And literally almost identical cars and everything like that, because these are the same mechanics. These are the same guys, and they held that race for, I believe, 15, 20 years, like every year. And they called it the Golden Glory Sweepstakes because a reporter, when writing about it to promote it, said they're going to be racing for Golden Glory. on the weekend. So like that stuck.
Yeah.
And so that was where the name kind of came from, was like to just pay tribute, homage to the guys who like are forgotten in a sense. And the fact that since the inception of motorsports,
that it paved way.
We've existed in this space, you know, and then it came to making a logo, and
which turned out to be great.
Bro, like I can't say enough about how that ended up, because that came out incredible.
And you got it curves
I was just putting helmets and chains and things like that on a lot of different like animals and all types of stuff. I was like, I don't know what this is gonna look like, and then one night I just looked down and saw the helmet with just the chain, and I was like, there it is.
Sometimes simple is the best.
There it is. And it strikes. I can't tell you how many people when they see it are like, oh, bro, like I immediately you get it. And for me, it was one of those things where I'm not just trying to represent just minorities or just, you know, I want anybody who identifies with the fact that maybe they didn't come from a silver spoon background or anything. And the way they got into motorsports isn't, let's say, you know, through a wealthy family or something like that. Or even if they did and their vibe is just different.
Yeah.
You know, like
they can still appreciate.
They can still appreciate. I mean, I'm trying to bring what grid life brings, I think, to the track days and to the weekends, to the apparel and to the sport itself from a fashion or look sense, is that, you know, we deserve to exist in this space too. And our style is something that I think the rest of the sport could benefit from, because it's kind of, like I said, there's a lot of times where you're just like watching a race because it lacks the flash, it lacks the style, it lacks the passion. So I mean, when it struck me, I was like, man, that's it right there. I mean, that's me in a nutshell. If I didn't have to wear anything else, that's what I wear. I wear a helmet and a chain. I'd be butt naked in that car. So like,
guys, get yourself a shirt.
Yeah, goldxglory.com. I think there's some dashes in there too. But at the same time, like, go out and support. I will get you shirts as soon as I possibly can. Most likely a lot of orders will go out in early October once the season's over. I want to see everybody rocking those on the grid, in the stands, everywhere. I mean, I think that is something that would go a long way for the sport, you know, for people to see how acceptable it is for us to exist within the space.
Absolutely.
So,
Jordan, what's a good place people can follow you and catch
Racer_Jordan23 on Instagram. And then you want to catch races and things like that, just YouTube, SRO GT4 European. And watch the broadcast, listen for Jordan Wallace, number 44 car. It's a blue and green Allied Racing Porsche Cayman GT4 RS Club Sport. Oh my God.
It's a long name.
So many like,
Subarus have long names.
Like so many extra things, but like
nice.
Yeah, like please tune in, please support, and going forward, be on the lookout. There's a documentary coming out about me soon too.
That's fucking badass.
It should be really cool. It should be really cool.
Like, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're a busy guy now.
Oh,
man.
bro, you hit the perfect time, actually, because like I'm only back for a couple weeks. I literally what's today? Today's Thursday. I leave Monday for Germany. You know, and I normally don't come back to this area because I've lived in Austin for a while, and my mom still lives here. So came back.
I was just like, hey man, I was gonna be okay with like a
Zoom call or something
oh fuck, I gotta do
but I was like, this is perfect, and just to come see you. Lawrence is one of my oldest buddies in racing, honestly. Like
almost 10 years since we
at least
seen each other, right?
Like 5 years ago. We saw each other when I was opening the outdoor track. But that was before. Even before that, though, it was like 5 years in between. So, like, I mean,
we talk every once in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while. But like, you know, keep tabs on each other and stuff.
No, it's good. Like, everyone's busy with their lives.
Yeah,
it's good to see this man pursuing his dreams,
and
living vicariously through him.
Oh man, like it's one of those things where I am the amalgamation of the support I've had, and guys like Lawrence and his brother and everybody who I've gotten to race with, around, and exist around has helped me get to the place where I'm at now. And I'm honored to be able to represent them, especially on the international level. It's really cool. I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself, but at the same time, it's something that I cherish and I'm super grateful for. So
I think all of us,
so cool.
POV friends, and I've obviously, I get to live vicariously through the GT4, and I get miles with the GT3 car.
Yeah, oh, bro, that's so rad, dude.
But to see K-Pax go in the Europe side, and like, if it wasn't for so many mechanical problems,
it's always that over there. Over there, it's mechanical and crashes that will definitely. You just race so much that that's what gets in the way instead of some of the other things. Yeah, exactly.
They've been killing it, but it's just all the small things, right?
Yeah. So
guys, thank you for joining us today. If you like what you see, please like, follow, and share. And look out for Jordan's documentary.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Lawrence, thank you for having me. Racecomp, everybody.
Racecomp KW. Obviously, your car is on KW.
Yeah, we're on KWs. Yeah, that thing handles like a Ooh, yeah, she's great. So, no, I just really appreciate everybody for supporting and allowing me to have the platform to do this stuff.
Absolutely,
it's really cool.
Absolutely. Allied Racing, check them out. Jordan Wallace.
Sweet.